Baby, we are back. Hoodie Uncle Rami, what's going on over here? Honestly, I just saw the hoodie and I thought it'd be hilarious if I started off a video like this. But regardless, you guys already know the deal. It's time to take off the pump cover because that thing is never going to stay on. I'm already tucked in like a gentleman. If you guys are new here, we got to tuck in our undershirts. Why? Because we're gentlemen and this is just how we do it, right? Tradition is everything. I started doing it on the very first video and I said, screw it, this is something we do. I've been tucking in since I was a child. So this is very custom to how I like to do things. Anyways, we are here for a reason and one reason only, mobility. How am I going to break into mobility? I don't want to be a guy that's going to hot Pilates classes to loosen up his QL, right? His hips. It's kind of weird, right? I'm not trying to open up my hips. Sounds a bit sus. You know what I'm saying? So the way I like to do it is the anti-sus model. And I'm going to show you guys two exercises, one that you're already doing and the other one that you're probably not doing, that are probably going to put you in the top 10% of mobility people on the planet. Actually way higher, considering basically 50% of the population probably can't even touch their toes. The point is it's going to take you to a level where it's like most weightlifters you see, you're probably going to surpass them if you just stick to these two movements. And there's way more to really dial up the mobility. But most of you watching realistically don't have incredible mobility. I've never really done it. It sounds interesting, mainly because of the way I pitch it, which I appreciate if that's the case. But it's because of how important it is. Mobility is access to new ranges of motion. It's being able to instill lifts from certain ranges through access. If you can access new ranges of motion, what happens? You recruit more muscle fibers. You get stronger through a longer range of motion, okay? Take it a step further. Now your body doesn't feel like a wet sock. You're not getting up, oh, everything hurts and you feel absolutely terrible. You have all this muscle and it actually feels awful. That was a problem I had, which is why I got into mobility. But the problem was there was no weightlifting gym bros that ever talked about mobility. It was just all about just putting on large tons of muscle. And if it hurts, it's a good thing, you know? But I don't want to be a guy with chronic back pain when he's 40. My goal is to do this thing, working out, being healthy, maintaining my youth, having vitality through old age. And mobility is almost like this key that unlocks and allows you to walk right through that door. And I'm telling you this because I feel better at 28 years of age than I did at 20. That doesn't make sense, right? And it's because now I'm starting to implement mobility, but not in a boring way, in a way that is putting on more muscle, making me stronger, injury resilient, all of these things to where I'm actually stronger than I've ever been. And it's through a longer range of motion. So listen, you're not here to hear me pitch you guys and, you know, blabble about mobility. You obviously clicked it for a reason, this video being the reason. And what are we going to do here? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? We're going to talk about mobility. It is time to show you guys the exercises. And what's so cool about this, like I said, one of them, in my opinion, is really the only thing you need getting started. The second one is because I love you guys. And it's my way of just being like, hey, here's probably something you're not doing. Try to instill this in your routine. Without further ado, it is mobility time, baby. I mean, this is the best I can do. I told you guys I've been trying to figure out this camera stuff with the leg days. That's how creative I have to get. So the key with these especially, it's, by the way, it's a back squat. That's the first one, and you're going to be like, dude, what do you mean a back squat? If you understand how to properly squat with mobility, this is going to help you out more than any other exercise, especially for people just getting started and for people that are really deep in the game. All you're doing, instead of you coming out like this and squatting halfway and kind of just pulsing out, I try to go nearly shoulder width apart, just like this, nearly shoulder width apart, my toes barely pointed out, not too far out, not completely flailing. You might have to do that in the beginning, but that's not what you want to work towards. You want to work towards more so, not so slanted out with your feet like that. You want them kind of pointed more forward. It doesn't have to be completely forward, but it's fine like this. And all you do is now get into your squat position. What I do is I like to grip my toes on the floor. I like to engage my glutes. And then from there, I want to make sure that my torso is upright. Doesn't have to be completely straight, but maintain a decent right here. All I'm doing is coming down. What's going to happen is look, you're going to come all the way down just like that. And you're going to chill. The difference is you can't do that right now, right? This is where we want to get to eventually. And then you're going to learn how to pop up just like that. And like in the beginning, it's okay if you're only coming over here. And you're like, well, that's my normal squat position. But now you're aware of it. So now you believe me, you're going to be able to push a little bit more and be like, okay, that was lower than what I did yesterday or last leg day or last rep. You progress. It's no different than strength training. You would never in your life be like, hey, throw 315 on and let me just start rocking this thing out. No, it takes time. Now, of course, like this is very light for me and I can kind of hang out here for a while, but it took time. And what you can do to help yourself out is by putting plates underneath your heels. You can do that. That helps with ankle mobility because that's something for me I'm working on. But that is why the deep squat is truthfully the best mobility exercise you can do as long as you are instilling it in correctly. If you instill it correctly, I promise you, it's going to do more for any sort of mobility issues that you have than any other exercise, bar none. Because look at that. I can just kind of come up, do my thing, bada boom, bada bang. The second mobility exercise that I want to share with you guys is actually the one I want you to start off with. Why? Well, simple, because that's a tough one for you to do to get started, and it's frustrating because you're like, dude, I haven't noticed any improvements, and we all have instant gratification issues. So instead of me telling you don't have them, which you are going to have, I might as well show you guys the best beginner exercise for mobility, and that's what I'm going to show you. But the reason why I want to show you both is because these things take time. But this exercise I'm about to show you is literally the perfect thing for you to get started. It's going to make you feel great. Look, I can just hang out here all day long if I want to. That's a good feeling. I'm telling you this right now. It feels great on your back. The fact that you have the ability to do these things, this is what we're working towards. So be patient. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to get started by just taking a plate. It can be a 45-pound plate. It could be a 25-pound plate. It could be a 10-pound plate. Does not matter. This is to help you sink lower and lower. Because most people think mobility is doing like all this kind of weird stuff, like the 90-90s or whatever, if you've ever heard of that. If you haven't, who cares? Point is you don't have to do things that are just like kind of complicated or trying to find out how it works. What we want to do is get started by just kind of sitting down like this if you can. In the beginning, you might have to go out super wide, super flailed, but that's okay because you're working yourself kind of into this position. And a way to help you facilitate that mobility is by just taking a plate and literally just sitting here. All you're going to do is just kind of sit. Learn how to sit lower and lower and lower. Maybe in the beginning, you're like, dude, it's too much for me to get that low. That's okay. It's not that big of a deal. And then from there, what you can do is once you start getting comfortable, is kind of swinging back and forth. Just like that. It's super light. You don't have to go crazy with it. You're working on mobility stuff. So even if you're kind of up here, you kind of have to rest your elbows on your knees. That's okay. Swing back and forth. Feel out your hips. You'll feel them loosen up. And then afterwards, when you drop it and you go to kind of sit down like this, like, oh, like, holy cow, I feel phenomenal. And you're like, yeah, of course you do. You're loosening up that area. You're allowing your hips to open up. You're getting new access to new ranges of motion. All you have to do is you start off from here. I know the camera angle is a little bit weird, but you have a plate. You crouch down. You might be able to only be here. That's okay. But as you get comfortable, you'll be able to sit lower and lower and lower. You swing back and forth. And from there, you can even kind of get fancy with it, where you're like, oh, holy. Oh, okay. Now this feels a ton better. But you don't have to do that in the beginning. This is what you're working towards. You get what I mean? Accessing new ranges, and bada boom, bada bang. Really, that's all it is. Like, it doesn't have to be super complex. You don't have to go to yoga studios where it's 110 degrees there to make sure you obtain flexibility. We're here for mobility, which is a bit different. Anyways, and I will tell you something. Mobility will get you out of breath in that way, where you start kind of breathing, you're like, ooh, my heart's pumping a little bit. It's because there's a lot happening. Like, you really are stretching out a lot of stuff, especially for you guys getting started. It's going to feel so agonizingly painful, but that incredible pain afterwards. It's like that relief that rushes down your legs afterwards. But I promise you, as long as you are getting deeper in your squat, you're gripping your toes on the ground, your glutes are engaged, torso is upright, dude, and you learn how to get lower and lower and lower, and then you use the exercise that I just showed you with the plate, and you go back and forth on them, right? You swing back and forth, you kind of feel out your hips. Your mobility is going to be so much better than basically everybody's that you know. And then from there, we'll start getting fancy, and I'll show you guys different squatting variations and different crazy exercises that's like really cranking up the mobility aspect. But if you just nail down those two movements, I promise you it will take you further than any amount of mobility sequence. And people go crazy on it, like, oh, I have this incredible mobility sequence that works. I work on mobility sequences, but I also understand what the needle movement exercises are. And it's those. Out of everything I've ever done, this is coming from someone whose hips were so tight. So tight. I carry so much stress in my hips like everybody else. I'm telling you, I've even given it to my brother who has possibly the worst mobility I've ever seen in my life. And he's starting to access ranges of motion I never thought was possible. Yeah, does he say thank you, Uncle Rami, all the time? Like, dude, relax. Like, I'm not your uncle. You know, I'm your brother. But regardless, you do those two and you nail down those two, I promise you your mobility is going to be exponentially better than everybody's that you know. You're going to be in the top 10%, for sure top 10% of the population. And it's truly a game changer. Anyways, if there's anything you guys are looking for specifically, you guys know the deal. Drop it down in the comments. And if people like those comments, give those a thumbs up. And that way I know to make a video on it. You guys know how much I love y'all. And I appreciate you guys being here. Uncle Rami out. Peace.